We've got the UK pledging 50-year support to do with AUKUS. The US, though, notably absent, if you will, and US uncertainty looms here. You've got the investigation or review, if you will, of the submarine deal. What do you make of all of this at the moment?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head, Holly. It's great that the British government commits another 50 years to AUKUS. Their support's never in doubt. The key is the Americans, and there's two issues here. The first is they're only producing one Virginia-class nuclear-powered submarine a year as it currently stands, and they need that submarine to replace their own ageing fleet. So that's an engineering and capacity problem. And secondly, as you say, there's an AUKUS review, and here the hardliners within the Trump administration have raised the high jump bar because they're now asking for potentially for commitments from Australia. What are you going to do with those submarines? Supposing China invades Taiwan, will you support America in a conflict with China? Now, Albanese's handled it well by saying, well, America hasn't come out openly and said they would defend Taiwan in the event of an invasion by China, so why should we? But he can only keep that up for so long.
If that was the case, how do you anticipate the US would expect Australia to respond in that kind of situation?
Well, the nuclear submarines are a warfare game changer. They have incredible capacity, and they would expect the nuclear powered submarines to be deployed if they themselves went to Taiwan's rescue, and that's far from public policy. So the hardliners within the Trump administration will have to convince the US to adopt that position before they can demand it of their allies. So we'll have to go through this process with them during this review, but there is a degree of uncertainty about its outcome.
Peter, what's standing out to me throughout this whole process is that Australia has not had a meeting with President Trump. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's Albanese that doesn't want the meeting with Trump for a couple of reasons. The first is he doesn't want the ritual humiliation of the Oval Office meeting between Trump and foreign leaders until issues like the tariffs are resolved and the AUKUS review is completed. But there's one other, and it looks as if we might be doing well on the tariffs. We might get away with the universal 10% instead of the punitive 15 and 25% that Trump's imposing even on allies like Japan and Korea. But we still do have the problem that Trump is demanding that his allies spend 3.5% of GDP on defence acquisitions. We're spending 2%. So I don't see how Albanese can have the full-blown Washington visit, Oval Office, meet and greet until he solves that problem, because Trump will go him in front of the world's media, which is why Albanese is trying to organise a side meeting at one of the international meetings coming up over the next 2 to 3 months.
Peter, we have run out of time, but I wanted you just to give us a couple of words to summarise the first week of Parliament. We had the formalities, of course. We had Susan Lee, her first sitting week. Then we had Barnaby Joyce and Michael McCormack teaming up, an unlikely alliance. Just a couple of words to finish us off.
Well, it was unusually entertaining, wasn't it? Because you've got the two old bulls, or sometimes called the steers of the National Party, making peace, undermining David Littleproud. Susan Lee's strengths and weaknesses were on display. Her strengths are very personal, calm, collected, professional, prepared, committed. The weakness is, how does she get cut through in the face of overwhelming majority of the government? And she'll need to develop policies and an ideological edge to achieve that. And then we had the government trying to keep its hubris and self-satisfaction under control and not doing it entirely perfectly, but overall the government's trying to set a tone of working for the Australian people and in harmony to the greatest extent possible with the crossbench.
We can always count on Barnaby Joyce to give us a bit of a smile during the week, can't we? That bull and steer clip. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go and watch it. Peter McGauran, always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Holly.